Well, welcome. This will be one of a few videos that we're going to do to supplement what we actually do when we're meeting together on the Old Testament. And the purpose of these videos is just to help you to dig a little bit deeper than we're maybe able to in class and to really establish some of the context that you can study on your own. And so we're going to work our way through Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 in this video. And you'll see that it begins to establish the trajectory for the rest of chapter 1 and chapter 2. And it begins to launch us in the right direction as we're looking at Genesis. So let me share my screen with you. And I'm going to supplement what I'm saying with a series of PowerPoints. And that'll just help us to track more easily. And so when we're looking at Genesis 1:1, we're looking at how God establishes authority over the ancient Near Eastern gods. Now, you may think, well, I never knew that. But the reality is, if we think about what Moses is doing in the book of Genesis, he is not writing to refute Darwinianism. He is not writing to create some kind of a scientific treaty where he is able to expound upon how God created over these 6 days the world and all that's in it. He is actually trying to establish the authority of God in the hearts of the people. And so, as we go through this, I want us to see that for the first thing we need to understand is when we look at Genesis 1:1, that it's written from God's perspective. So let me go ahead and read the verse, and it says this: in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So there's a number of things that we can say about that verse, but to set things up, I really want us to understand first that Moses is writing to the people of Israel, and he's writing to them to help them to know how to live amongst pagan peoples that surround them so that they can display and make visible the invisible God. And why do they want to do that? So that those surrounding pagan nations can come to know Yahweh and that they can have a personal relationship with Yahweh and become followers of Yahweh, since that's what all humans were created to be, is to be lovers of God. And so in that, Moses is going to write to his people, to the people of God, about the creation story to help them understand the nature of who God is and what God is doing in the world. And so as we look at this, it's called a polemic. And a polemic is simply an argument against or a defense against those surrounding nations and their concepts of God. So if we think of the ancient Near Eastern nations that surrounded Israel at the time, they had gods for everything, whether it was the sun or the moon or the stars, whether it was the rain for the crops or the crops themselves, whether it was for this kind of crop or that kind of crop, or it was fertility of the people. They had to have a God for each and every one of those aspects of life. And so they would then worship and sacrifice to that God. And so what Moses wants to do is to help them to understand that your God is the God of heaven and earth. And therefore, you only need one God, the true God, Yahweh, to do all of those things that all these other ancient Near Eastern gods need to do. And so that begins to establish the place and authority of God in our universe and in our world, but more specifically for them as their leader, as he is going to begin to lead them in how to traverse this world and how to live within it. So let's just take a few minutes to unwrap the actual verse itself. It says, in the beginning, meaning that prior to the beginning, God still existed. Now, he existed in some dimension that we don't understand. It's a spiritual dimension. And when it says in the beginning, God created, it means that all of a sudden there was a beginning, which is time oriented, and he created, and you know we have a physical world. So when God created, he created a physical world bound by time. But what that also means is that he is outside that world and not bound by time. And so that is a mind bender for us, but it was important for the people of Israel to understand so that they could believe that their God would have their back and would lead them properly. And then it says that in the beginning, God created both the heavens and the earth. And again, we said that that is to show that he had authority over all these other ancient Near Eastern gods, that they needed each one of those gods to run either the heaven or earth, but he does all of that. And so Moses is establishing God's authority over the entire world. And so with that, we'll close this part, and then we're going to move from here to Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, where we will begin to see what God does actually at the very beginning. So thank you.